Ever find yourself walking down a like dark city street,
Yeah.
phone kind of clutched in your hand, just hoping that battery doesn't die?
Oh, totally.
It's like we rely so much on that little device, on that constant connection. But what happens, really, what happens when the lights go out? And I don't just mean at home, but like citywide. What happens when that connection we take for granted vanishes?
Poof.
Yeah, poof. Today, we're diving into that kind of unsettling scenario, because the article you sent over about, staying connected during outages, well, it's got me thinking about the fragility of it all.
It's true. It's true, isn't it? We assume, right? Like technology equals constant connectivity, but it's a lot more vulnerable than we really realize.
Yeah.
This article, it really drives that home, especially when it comes to urban areas.
Right. A construction mishap, a severe storm. These aren't these aren't things from a disaster movie, right? They happen.
Happens all the time.
And suddenly that always on world, it feels very, very different.
It's the interconnectedness of it all that I think creates that vulnerability. The article talks about cascading failures, and that image, man, that really stuck with me. One system goes down, let's say a power outage, takes out cell towers, right? And suddenly, bam, the domino effect. No power, no cell service, maybe no internet either if those cables were damaged. You're essentially stranded, like in a communication desert and in a densely populated city. Ooh, that impact, it's magnified. Everyone's scrambling for those same limited resources, just amplifying the chaos.
And it's easy to brush this off,
right?
To just be like, oh, it's an inconvenience. But you're right, this goes way deeper, because it's not just about posting on social media. It's about safety. Imagine needing to call for help, to reach family, and the very tools we rely on are just useless.
Exactly. That assumption that, I can always call 911, that your loved ones are, just a text away. It's shaken to the core. The article, it makes a really, really poignant point about the psychological impact of that, the isolation, the anxiety, especially in a crisis situation where reliable information is it's scarce.
And that's where it gets really interesting to me, because knowledge is power.
Right.
And knowing where to even begin preparing, man, that can feel overwhelming. The article emphasizes that, everyone's needs are different, so there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some smart steps we can all take.
Absolutely. It starts with a simple question. Who are your must-reach people? Just visualize those key contacts: spouse, children, maybe an elderly neighbor.
I love that you're bringing it back to those human connections, because ultimately that's what matters most. Once you've got those people in mind, the next step, as the article suggests, is to consider the kind of communication that's non-negotiable. Do you need to relay complex medical information, or is a simple, I'm safe message enough?
That distinction it's crucial, because it dictates the tools, the strategies you'll need. It's like packing for a trip, right? You wouldn't bring your entire wardrobe.
Right.
You pack for the specific destination and purpose. And in this case, the destination is preparedness.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right.
Okay. So I've got our must-reach list. We've considered the type of communication we absolutely need. What's next?
The article suggests a little inventory time. And this isn't about, buying a bunch of fancy gadgets. It's about understanding your starting point. What devices do you already have? Your smartphone, of course. But what about a laptop, or even something as simple as a battery-powered AM/FM radio?
I have to admit, I had to dust off my old radio after reading that article. It's amazing how we overlook those basic tools in our quest for the latest and greatest tech. Speaking of which, the article delves into some high-tech solutions, and some of them might surprise you. But before we get into those specific tools and techniques, I'm curious. Let's talk about power, because what good is a fancy phone if the battery's dead?
Absolutely, and that's where something as simple as a UPS can be a game changer.
Now, for anyone listening who might not be familiar with that term, a UPS, or uninterruptible power supply, is essentially a battery backup, often used for computers. But the article points out that it can keep your home internet running for a while if the outage is localized, which is pretty cool.
Right, and it's important to remember that this this only works if the internet provider itself is still operational.
Yeah.
But it does buy you, valuable time. And of course, for your personal devices, portable battery packs are essential.
Totally. But I had no idea how many different types were out there.
Yeah.
The article dives into different battery capacities, charging speeds. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is a lot, yeah. And it can get surprisingly technical, right? But don't worry, you don't need to become an electrical engineer to figure it out. Just remember, in an outage, that charging speed, that can become really, really important. You might have, limited power sources and maybe multiple devices to charge. So having a battery pack that can, juice things up quickly, that's a huge advantage.
It's like the difference between a leisurely Sunday brunch and a mad dash to catch a flight.
Exactly.
Right. You need that fast fuel option. And speaking of phones, I love the article's reminder about using them as emergency hotspots.
Ah, yes. Turning your phone into a mini Wi-Fi hub for your other devices. That's kind of clever, right? But there are a couple of things to keep in mind.
Okay, lay it on me. What are the potential pitfalls?
Data limits, for one. Most of us, we don't think twice about streaming movies on our phones, but in an emergency situation, when you're relying on that data for essential communication, hitting your limit, that could be disastrous. So it's worth checking your plan, knowing your limits beforehand.
That's such practical advice, and something honestly that I think most people probably wouldn't even consider until it's too late. What was the other point?
Security.
Yeah.
Security. When you create a hotspot, especially in a crowded, potentially stressful situation, you don't want just anyone being able to connect to your network. So it's important to have a strong password and be mindful of who's accessing your connection.
It's easy to forget about those security measures when you're in a pinch, but yeah, crucial to stay vigilant.
Now, switching gears a bit, the article mentions Starlink, that satellite internet system. It sounds amazing in theory, internet beamed down from space. But how practical is it for city dwellers, really?
It's an intriguing idea, especially that whole independent infrastructure thing. In a major outage that takes out traditional internet service, Starlink could theoretically keep you connected. But you need a clear line of sight to those satellites. In a dense urban environment, right, with tall buildings everywhere, it's not as reliable as you might hope.
So maybe not the best option if you're hoping to set up shop in your basement apartment. Exactly. You'd likely have better luck, on a rooftop or a balcony or something. And it's worth mentioning Starlink. It requires specialized equipment. It's an investment. It's not a quick fix. So more of a long-term play for those truly committed to staying connected no matter what.
It is fascinating to think about how technology is evolving, right, to address these vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about some surprisingly low-tech solutions. Because as much as we love our gadgets, sometimes the simplest tools are the most reliable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where the article really surprised me. It highlighted the humble walkie-talkie of all things.
Right.
Which, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense.
Right. They might seem outdated, but they operate on entirely different frequencies than our cell phones.
And in a situation where cell towers are overwhelmed, that can be a lifesaver. Now their range is limited, but for communicating within a few miles, say, with family members who've evacuated to different parts of the city, they're surprisingly effective.
The article specifically called out FRS radios or family radio service radios. Why those in particular?
Because they're incredibly user-friendly. No need for any special licenses. You just grab a pair and you're good to go.
It's like the easy button of emergency communication.
Exactly.
But again, it's about having these tools beforehand, right? Not scrambling when the lights go out.
Preparation is key always. And speaking of preparedness, let's not forget about those hand crank emergency radios.
Oh man, those things are like the Swiss Army knives of disaster preparedness. They can pick up AM/FM broadcasts, weather alerts, and many even double as flashlights and phone chargers. Right. Talk about multifunctional. And it's not like these are like single-use gadgets either. I've used mine camping during power outages, even just as a handy flashlight when the lights went out unexpectedly.
Exactly. They offer, that peace of mind for any situation. Of course we can't forget the truly, and I mean truly low-tech solutions. Think whistles, signal mirrors.
Yep.
They might sound almost archaic, but they rely on zero power, and sometimes that's all you've got.
I remember reading a story about a hiker who was lost for days and was finally found thanks to signaling with a mirror. It's a good reminder that those basic tools, they can make a world of difference.
They really can. But beyond the gadgets themselves, the article emphasizes the importance of human-centered planning, because communication, it's about connecting with people, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that really stood out to me was the concept of family or household meeting points.
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a movie, but in reality, it's just plain smart.
It is. It's about having a plan in place. If you're separated during an outage and can't reach each other, having a designated spot to meet up, that can save precious time and reduce anxiety.
And this is something actionable, right here, right now. If you're listening to this, take a moment. Maybe even pause the podcast and have a conversation with your family. Decide on a meeting point, maybe even a backup location. It takes 5 minutes, and it could make all the difference.
Exactly. And on that note, establishing regular check-in rituals, even outside of emergencies, can be incredibly beneficial.
Right. It's like having those little touch points throughout the day. Just keeps the worry at bay.
It really does.
Yeah.
Even just knowing, right, that you'll hear from each other at a certain time, even if it's it's just a quick, hey, all good here kind of text. It brings that peace of mind, and reinforces those connections, those vital connections. And speaking of long-term thinking, the article wraps up with some really insightful advice about sustainable communication. Essentially, how to stay connected for the long haul, not just during a brief, blackout.
Right, because as much as we hope these disruptions are short-lived, it's wise to be prepared for something a little more extended. The article seems really big on solar chargers and hand crank options, right, for power. What are your thoughts on those?
They're not just for camping trips anymore. That's for sure. I mean, look, they might have limitations. A cloudy day, not ideal for solar charging, obviously, but as part of a multi-pronged approach, right?
Yeah.
To staying powered up. They're invaluable.
Yeah.
It's about diversifying your options. So you're not solely reliant on the grid, especially when that grid might be down for a while.
It's like having a backup plan for your backup plan.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. And it strikes me that this kind of preparedness, it's not just about the practicality of it. It's about that sense of, I don't know, self-reliance, of agency in a situation where it's easy to feel powerless.
You've hit on something really important there. It's about, I think, shifting our mindset from one of dependence, what will I do without my phone, to one of empowerment. Like, okay, I can handle this. I have the tools, I have the knowledge, and that can make a huge difference, I think, psychologically when facing an uncertain situation.
You're so right, because that mental resilience, it's just as crucial as the physical preparedness.
Now before we wrap up, the article had one more piece of advice that I thought was surprisingly insightful, and that was basic tech maintenance.
Oh, absolutely. It's the little things, right? It's the little things that we often overlook. Those software updates that we tend to just, I'll do it later.
Right.
They often include security patches, bug fixes, things that can be crucial in an emergency. And then there's battery care, which let's be honest, how many of us are actually doing that right?
It's easy to forget about, but those small actions, like not letting your phone constantly drain to zero, those things can actually extend the life of your battery, which could could make all the difference when you're relying on these devices for vital communication.
It's about being mindful, proactive even. With the technology that we often we take for granted, it's been fascinating to really unpack this, hasn't it? It's easy to go about our daily lives assuming that connection is a given, but the reality is it's more fragile than we might think.
It is, and acknowledging that vulnerability, that's the first step towards building resilience, because it's not about living in fear of the lights going out, right? It's about being informed, being prepared, and knowing that even in the face of uncertainty, we have the power to connect, to communicate, and to overcome.
I love that. Informed, prepared, empowered. For everyone listening, what's the one thing that resonated with you most today? What's the one small step you can take right now to feel a little more prepared, a little more connected, and a little more in control? Because knowledge is great, but it's the action that truly makes a difference. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and most importantly, stay prepared.